In studio, we've the two main guys behind K-Fest, Mike Ahern and Neil Browne. Welcome to the studio, guys.
Cheers, thanks.
Great to have you. So, tell us a bit about K-Fest.
K-Fest, I suppose it's a music and arts festival based in Clorgan in County Kerry. It's a festival that began in 2013 and came under the Gathering initiative of that year. So it sprang to life really in about 2012 when a group of people from Clorgan got together and decided to come up with kind of a plan and an overall plan for the Gathering and an agenda. And a couple of old festivals were reincarnated, a couple of new ones received a bit of a financial boost, and then we created two new festivals. So K-Fest came in under that really, like, you know.
Great,
so,
yeah. And every year it's getting bigger and bigger.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going from strength to strength, really.
Excellent, yeah. The numbers are doubling, you were saying? Yeah,
like year on year, I suppose. What we found really from the first year, that our numbers definitely double, like year on year. Last year we were looking at maybe having 5,000 or 6,000 people.
Yeah.
This coming year, then we're looking at kind of maybe 8 to 10.
Wow.
Yeah. So like we do kind of a head count and stuff like that through our galleries. We have a map. So we take over about 19 buildings throughout the town, turn them into pop-up galleries, and each gallery gets its own sticker. We have a little map to ensure that we get a good solid circulation of people throughout all the galleries. And so that way then we can tell roughly that each gallery, the first year got about 250, 300. Last year our numbers were up around 400 or 500 people per gallery. Yeah, so it was great.
And it's on for the whole weekend, so you start Thursday evening for the launch and it kicks off Friday evening.
Correct.
Saturday, Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, that's right. Friday, Saturday and Sunday are all day and all night.
Yeah.
So we do try to run a pretty comprehensive program that will try to cover all demographics.
Excellent, and all ages as well.
All ages, all walks of life, exactly. So we try to be as inclusive in every way possible as we can.
And what kind of stuff do you do during the day?
So as well as the 20+ galleries that we open up, that would house roughly about 140, 150 artists last year. There's also a comprehensive kids program. So we have outdoor activities for kids, we have indoor activities, we have films going for children. We have a film program that shows documentaries. We partner with the Kerry Film Festival to do some work with that. They give us a certain number of programs. We do secret cinemas, which was a big success last year. We also do drama and spoken word. The poetry recitations are particularly popular. We do rambling houses. We do holistics and art therapy. We started that for the first time last year, and it was the response from people was just, it was
outstanding.
Really amazing. Yeah.
So you work on this all year, really. You're quite busy.
It's become a 12-month thing. Yeah, whether we like it or not at this stage, it's a 12-month thing.
And it's all voluntary, of course, the work you do.
Absolutely. And I mean, I suppose a huge ethos for ourselves really is putting on as many free events as possible for people. You know, so all our galleries are free. Street entertainment is a huge part of it as well. So like we realise that kids and family events on the June Bank Holiday weekend are very important, you know. So you can come to town at 9 o'clock in the morning, spend all day, keep the kids entertained, and you can be there until 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. What you do, parents tend to go home, get a babysitter, and they're back out that night for our music and nighttime entertainment as well. So it's kind of a two-part festival. It kind of works during the day, and then we have a nighttime events as well. Like, so.
Yeah. And this year now, Harry, are you ready? Are you prepared? Are you panicking?
Slight panic, yeah. I would 12 weeks to go, we heard yesterday. But like we're at the 12 months of the year, you know, so even though you can actually feel, you know, in our main meetings and things like that now, that the intensity is rising a little bit, and it's this time come March every year, you can feel things being kicked up another notch. But I think, you know, we work extremely hard. We're a voluntary group. We have great support from our local community, and you know, when you've all those things in place, the work ethic and the support of your community, like it's you know, it goes a long way in the success of the festival, you know, and ensuring success.
Well, excellent. I think you guys have done enough talking for now. So let's have a look at some of your own personal work.
We're actually in a building called KTPT's. It's an old, what used to be a pub in the town of Clorgan. It was a pub that was run by two sisters, and we're actually in their back kitchen here. And the building hasn't been open in about, we opened it last year, but previous to that hadn't been open in 30 or 40 years. So we're very lucky to be in here, and it's part of history. There's a word that gets bandied about in the art world, and it's juxtaposition, you know. it's a lovely world. But it's, I suppose we're in a very kind of, as I said, like a historical building, Lorgan, that hadn't been open in 40 years, so it's a little bit, it's kind of run down with a huge amount of character, and then you're bringing very contemporary work into that space, and I just think it sits very well, to be honest with you. It's, and I like that kind of, I like that play with space and contemporary art, you know. I think there should be a lot more of it, you know, where you're taking art out of a kind of a conventional gallery setting and bringing it into just an alternative space. And I think the art comes alive within that space, but also the building gets new energy. Sometimes you feel almost just like a conductor, and a conductor of energy. I suppose, I know conventionally you look at a conductor and you're thinking of music, and he's almost like the puppet master, you know, dealing with all these instruments and also connecting with the audience in the background. And sometimes with art, that's how I feel, you know. Obviously, one, you're dealing with the objects that have energy, and that comes through you, and you are the conductor and the artist, and then you reformulate whatever you're working on, you give it back out. So you're just like almost a medium for the energy. But as soon as the energy comes into you, I think that's your time to play. That's where your personality comes through in it, you know, and you send it back out. Then again, I'm drawn to objects, you know, objects that already exist. And for me, it's not everything, but it's particular objects. And for me, they actually have an energy in themselves. So a lot of the objects I tend to work with, I work with found objects. They seem to have an energy. I love working with old tools, musical instruments. And like I could probably spend 6 months looking at a piece, and it's only through the process of living with that piece that it begins to come alive in an alternative sense. So what I do is I take that piece in and I just play with it, you know, and kind of make it into something else, something with a little sense of humour, a little bit of darkness, and give it hopefully a new energy. And just put it out there and see what the reaction is to it, you know. My favourite piece is it's a piece I called Flynocular, and I'm constantly picking up objects, and again, like I said earlier on, these objects have an energy. So I found these set of theatre binoculars, and they're from kind of the late, early 19th, they're probably 1900s, 1910. And then I found an old science laboratory stand, and then I found a dove. So what I did was I decided to say, okay, is there an alternative universe where all these three items can be merged together? And there is, and it's the world of Mike Ahern. And so I took the bird apart and attached the legs and feet of the bird to binoculars, and also detached the wings and put the wings on binoculars. But so at the face of it, it just looks like a mismatch of different items. But for me, there's a sense of humour there, but there's also another energy and something that's quite, again, kind of dark, sad, but yet humorous, in that it actually looks almost like a living thing, just made up of different parts. But for me, it exists in a certain world and an alternative universe. So yeah, that's one of my favourite pieces, you know, and like I normally have it in my house at home, and I look at it and it just brings a smile to my face. So.
The art I do primarily at the moment is film and sculptural pieces. I try to take domestic household items that are ergonomically satisfying to look at anyway, and try to put something on them or in them. I went and tried to look for these beautifully designed little people, and I had them in my head for years and years and years if I could get my hands on them. And I kind of stumbled across railway train sets, and they have these most beautiful constructed people that I knew that I could spend 15 years trying to make something like them, and I can buy them for €5, and they would infinitely do my job better. And I guess I was just trying to reappropriate the household item with something that's already in existence, and using them for different purposes, and also the goal of them is to add a sense of humour about them as well, because sometimes these are characters of people, so no matter how you set them up, they're going to represent a social interaction, no matter how you set them up. So I wanted to try and put some level of wit and dark wit behind them, and then try to add my own slant on things. So this is called She's Trying to Mount a Sermon, and it's just a woman being awe-inspired by a man preaching from a Sermon on the Mount. Two figures on a candlestick that just get lost when you put them anywhere in the grand scale, and to play with the scale of things, to try and have grand ideas on a really, really small scale. The scene is a husband reading his newspaper, and his wife is being held hostage with a gun to her head by a stranger. And while that's going on, there's also the daunting fact that you can lower the plunger above them as well, all set inside a coffee percolator. So trying to make some sort of wit and humour, as dark as it may be. It's domestic items used in domestic settings. It's part of the off feature of it. How does it fit into settings? I think settings like this is an old house from, I think it's from the 1920s or 1940s, I think. Any of my pieces sit quite comfortably here. I have a piece on an old record player that I set it up yesterday in one of the rooms, and honestly, I set it up in the room and I walked out to set up another piece, and when I walked in, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see, the wood from the trees. It was at home in the house. It's a love affair between the piece and the place it's put into. The creative process it's like a temperamental housemate. It's, sometimes it's always around you. It's always around you. And then sometimes you have a great time with it, and then sometimes you lose the head with it. You don't just randomly make something, You don't just randomly pick up something and create it without it, whether you're conscious or subconscious. There's something going on with you when you're making something. There's a piece on a record, the record player. And I remember I was just, I was going through a hard time where I had an awful lot on, and I was just stressed, just horrendously stressed. There was an awful lot going on. I was busy 8 days a week, and I had absolutely no time to myself. I had no personal life. That was it. Everything working. And then I ended up making this piece about a man trying to put his ear to the ground with noise coming at him through nature. And again, that wasn't intentional. I thought it was a funny visual that this guy wants to listen to something like a woman coming at him with a Hoover. I didn't reflect me. I didn't think it reflected me. I just thought that's gonna look funny if somebody looks at it. I'll put on a record player because he's listening and it's their sound. But now I look at it and I think, oh yeah, that defines 12 months of my life, before that. And I have a number of pieces in the works that I'm sure will probably do the same in a year to come.
Welcome back to the second half of Art Talk. Now, before the break, we were talking to Mike and Neil about K-Fest, which is happening every June bank holiday weekend in Clorglen. So guys, I mean, these days it's unusual to hear of such a cool art festival going on, we'll say, outside of Dublin. So why did you pick Clorglen?
I suppose first of all, we're both from Clorglen.
Yeah.
And we've got a huge sense of pride of place,
Yeah.
And I think, we had seen over the last number of years that the town had suffered terribly, over the last 10, 15 years. So we can walk through Clorglen any given day of the week, and you can see maybe 40, 50 vacant premises in the town.
Yeah.
So when we decided to run an arts festival, we both had worked in various pop-up galleries and stuff like that, so we said, right, let's use these vacant buildings and turn them into centres of creativity and expression for the June Bank Holiday weekend. So it's a base of building relationships with the owners of the town, of those vacant premises, and getting keys and turning them into just for one weekend, you know, what are normally vacant, turning them into something that's just buzzing with, teeming with life, you know. So it's just, you know, we need to give back to our town as well.
Yeah, it's great to bring all these creative people to Killarglen and show off all their work, and you can all meet new people and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And there wasn't a lot of nerves really going into it, because we kind of felt that the Killarglen people would be open-minded enough and engaging enough to actually welcome these 150 artists, hippies, yeah, basically.
It's always important to get the locals on your side as well.
Absolutely, like, and we do hail it as an education to locals as well. So it started in 2013, and a lot of people were walking in. They didn't know, you know, they couldn't get their head around some sculpture pieces or abstract expression painting. They just didn't know what was going on with it. But they engaged with it nonetheless.
And they knew their buildings.
And they knew their buildings, absolutely. Yeah. So the buildings alone became art pieces.
Yeah.
And in 2014, the same people were coming back and having seen paintings similar to it or works like it. They were like, oh yes, okay, we can relate this to the piece there last year. And in 2015, we're pretty sure that they're going to walk into the buildings well educated and well versed in the arts.
Like in a small town, we have a population of, in the town itself, it's a bigger catchment area, about 1,500 people.
Yeah.
But in the greater catchment area, there's about 6,000 people. Like, you can talk, maybe 50% of those over a 2-year period have now been to over 30 galleries.
Okay.
Like, that's massive. And so they're beginning to have opinions, and they're beginning to feel comfortable with the art world, which sometimes can be a little bit aloof, you know, and untangible just for the ordinary person. But now these people, they have opinions, you know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, we joke about it, but we literally get stopped in the street by butchers, bakers, police officers telling us, oh, come here, I have an idea for an art piece. I'd like to run past you. Like, what other small town does that? Like, what other small town has those sort of people? And it's great to engage with them, yeah.
And there's a prize, isn't there, for Screaming Pope Prize?
That's right, yeah. So the Screaming Pope Prize was established last year in the second K-Fest. So what we do, last year we invited roughly 150 artists, thereabouts, 150 artists. So we got 2 well-respected Kerry artists, Rebecca Wall and Alan Ryan Hall, to come down. We invited them, and in fairness to the 2 of them, they did an absolute stellar job. They spent the entire weekend walking around, making sure that they could meet all the artists and to engage with them and to see what their work was like. And they judged, and ultimately it was a Latvian-born Irish artist, Gertz Pelotas, that won the Screaming Pope Prize.
And four runners-up, yeah.
And 4 runners-up, yeah.
Excellent. So guys, I'm afraid that was really short and fast, but that's all we have time for.